What up? What up? Young Black and Vegan. I'm excited today. I'm excited about this conversation. Listen, take 1 minute to grab a pen, grab some paper, get some water. You're definitely going to want to lock in. This episode, this show today is all about you. It's all for you. If you leave early, it's a good chance you might miss something that you've been looking for an answer to. You might miss the missing key to unlocking everything for you. So I encourage you to stay to the end of this video. I'm excited. I'm gonna bring my brother up right now, brother Sevan Bomar. I'm getting a little feed now, an echo. You hear that on your end?
Okay, let me check that out and see.
Check.
Okay.
1 2 1 2. Okay, yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
All
So
right. All right.
I'm feeling marvelous today. I'm feeling good. I've been looking forward to having a conversation with you, Seven, for a minute. I fell into your videos maybe about a year and a half ago, and immediately, what I do on the show is whatever tools or information that I've been picking up on my journey. I just want to share it because it's like if you see an incredible movie, it's like, yo, you're telling people about it to go see it. And so, just listening to your teachings and what you talk about, I'm like, we got to get this brother on. This should be a household name. He has some very important information. And so let me give you a proper introduction. Sevan Bomar, an author, a great mind, a scholar, a teacher, a lot of things. Happy to have you on the show, bro. I used to always intro my shows with peace to the tribe, and then I heard you break down peace and like wholeness. I was like, I can't think of stuff though and say wholeness on the show. So, I want you to talk about that and everything, and just say what's up to the people, let them know who you are.
Absolutely. Well, the introductions can be a little bit tough when you're working on this multidisciplinary being, right? Because it seems like every word is a limitation now. But, I'm going to do the best during the build to, take a step back like it's the first time and really, really go in and bring a clear, distinct message, especially in these times that's very relevant, as any artist should do. Any true artist is, you're really, really supposed to paint the soul of the zeitgeist that is happening in the world. That's your duty at minimum, right? To
Right.
not just regurgitate the trend, but to, overall define the energy through your work, which we call fun. And, before we even begin, like I could just talk a little bit about my path. I had been this life extremely fortunate to be at least a fly on the wall in almost every situation of importance, all the way on the high levels, all the way to, the basement or the hole, if you may, in order to be able to catch up first, because I believe that we do live infinite lives. And the goal of immortality is to cross your memory of your previous lives, if you may, into your future existences. But you can also see why maybe you wouldn't even want to do that at certain stages. So I do feel like we're always in these gradual stages of waking up. And personally, I woke up in my late 20s through really a lifetime of spiritual waxing strong, like just really getting that, what I would say is ancestral initiation of life, just the things that happen that push you more towards discovering the divinity and the truth within. And that process that I believe that many of us are so familiar with. However, I was really, really devoted to finding out what happens after you die, and also really, really touching the power, rather than just being like so many that I saw that were kind of like vainly reciting. They were just repeating scripture, and it didn't even really seem like they had a connection of any kind of entity to the level of what a God was supposed to be, right? And so, in short, I was more interested in being a prophet than a pastor. Like I was more interested in the power behind the throne, if you may, than the actual just regurgitating and getting everyone to follow you because you were saying what they wanted to hear. But that, of course, came later on because my initial journey was really, for sure, all about me, hence the term inner stand. And it is still always going to remain that way. I feel like that is the ultimate safe space. Like when you make it about you, you always will have the rewards because everything that you go through will still add to who you are. And so my teachings are really like a diary, as I mentioned, where I allow others to read my intimate encounters with the reality and compare notes even with what they've experienced. But I don't condone the idea of having some type of idol or leader per se in your life as the focus of everything for you, like let's say like even a God or a Jesus or any of this. I believe that the ultimate power is to see what your connection is with all there is. Some would like to begin that with nature and really hone in on that energy versus all of the context and the dogmas, which AI is consistently proving, and the reality is even showing it, that there is some real fun work that needs to be done with the spiritual belief systems. And for me, being without those systems showed me how you can level the playing field a bit, especially when it comes to making it in a matrix like this, because we've all experienced being, well, I can't say all of us, but many of us experience being an exceptional person, but not receiving any kind of recognition or reward for that. And in fact, we often see the opposite, where somebody who's on the destroy mission could pretty much gain all the notoriety and the ear of even the world versus those who really have solutions, may be buried somewhere, right? So just seeing all of that, like I know I was supposed to come in with an introduction, but that is the introduction, that I'm really a continuum more than a start and a finish. And I always believe because we're still governed somewhat by time right now, the best thing is for me to tell you what is the best thing for you to hear, what could be more valuable to you at this moment, and waste less time on going over my thousands of years of wisdom, right? However, I will mention this. Everyone, if I ask them, is there existence beyond a name or a word? They would say, yes. And if I ask them then to explain it to me, there may be then some difficulty, right? Because the reality is that if I asked you even if anything existed, again, outside of language and outside of the words, you would absolutely agree there is. But if I asked you to explain it to me, you couldn't, because you would have to then use the words again that we just said you couldn't use. And this to me is like master wisdom. It's like a paradox. It shows you that the code itself, which is what I call it, the language, the linguistic system, is the most important thing in a matrix. And because the matrix is created with code. Code is containers. Containers are words. When you say something, hammer, already we've built a container in your mind to etch out what a hammer is versus everything else in your mind. And because of that, I feel like the world will never go very far until it examines the actual code that it functions in and even dreams in. And so the masterpiece of my fun is to deliver these ciphers and these gems about the language in order to really, truly deprogram a person, because that's a term that's often used, deprogram. And you need to know the program in order to be able to deprogram. And so that's what this is about. That's what, my journey has been. And I've been in the community for roughly 20 years now. Like, I know we're definitely really, really close to that, if not maybe a little over that. And I've learned a lot from the experiences that I've had in the conscious community. And that's just across the spectrum, across belief systems, et cetera. And so, yeah, I'm here to not only compare notes, I'm also a serial entrepreneur, have as many have come to know, because when you do something like that, it's not really talk. It's not saying, hey, I want to do this. It's you actually have to have it there. So we do have 4 to 5 very premium AAA experiences that we've deployed in order to assist humanity with what we're saying they should do, which is always something that I think that as a teacher we should be on point with. It's like, okay, if you instruct people on how to do something, now how are they, can you give them a path on how to actually accomplish that? Starting with some of the basic stuff like how do they even get the money, right? Which is the bottom line to a lot of things that people experience. I also will say that I'm a polymath. And what that is just a person who has shown genius or genius level qualities at something. It doesn't mean everything. You could be a total fool in certain things. Like if I told you to break down an electric motor, that may not be your thing, right? So now you've gone from whatever you do really well and a master at to being less than a novice. So in many ways, though, the quality of going into something is really like a pattern. And when you master that pattern, you can say that you've reached some level of mastery in life. And some were born like that. Personally, my mastery was over the dream world. I say was on a past tense level because the dream world has changed since when I was a child versus how it is now. And that's just a whole nother conversation. But the reality is that when you have certain skills, like, again, when you look at certain artists, they're even built a certain way. The hand may be larger, or the vocal box may be different. Some type of anomaly that gives them the ability to excel in something. And so that is important, I feel, to mention. And also, lastly, I've reached a stage of enlightenment and beyond, which in itself makes it like I already came to the planet and got the T-shirt. And everything I'm living right now is really just a cherry on top. Enlightenment in its truest extent is a total activation of the chakra centers and the spiritual field around your body. So that way you can vividly experience, at least for that moment, the truth to the whole thing, which is that it's all you. And I have not only done that, I study that, I practice that daily, and I'm constantly investigating others' experiences and other variations of how to enter into these states. My personal recommendation is breathing, because it's free. And you will learn that the best things in life are truly free. And it shatters many paradigms when you realize that energy is so abundant. It's actually more of that you're trying to shut down the energy and suppress the energy, especially in these energetic states, more so than you're looking for energy and trying to suck some energy or something, which is kind of contrary to the world. They talk about people with the power, they're almost like vampires. But the spaces that I've been, there's so much energy. It's like that's all there is energy. And there's a powerful paradigm that I can introduce everyone to in relation to that maybe later on. But let's just suffice to say that learning how to breathe and how to breathe through what we call diaphragm breathing. This is to blow up the additional pockets that are on the bottom of your back area on the side, like where your kidneys are, which gives the vehicle some additional. It's like, okay, he's opened up the pockets. I don't know if it belonged to when we were frogs or whatever, but it's like, okay, this level of dialing into oneself, it brings one into like a whole ancient spectrum of who they are. It's like, even when they say that, let's say for lack of better terms, the white men showed up on the Hawaiians, they were surprised of how shallow they were breathing. And that was the name that they gave them, those who breathe shallow, because in their world, everything was about the breath, right? And so that even sets the pace right there for how we should discuss things today, about how there's levels to things. Because let's say, as a Polynesian in that time, breath was for sure more superior than language, right? But if I drop you into academia and a matrix that is designed around language in those kind of systems, then breath is going to be have less of an effect on that system. You see what I mean? So multidisciplinary is that you would learn language and breath rather than mastering breath alone and then just assuming everybody only needs to master breath for them to get to all there really is. You see what I mean? Like this is an infinite climb. It's almost like, let's say in a video game, if they have levels and then the game is over. There's no game over here. And it was, I believe, for this epoch of humans, more difficult to confront that than it was to agree to ideas like death. Because death equals a cutoff point, death equals a stop, death equals a rest, as it does every night. We die daily. And in that, people can feel comfortable even, just like you are when you're asleep. Versus if it's going to be an infinite existence and always going, you need to adjust yourself for that kind of experience. And so our ancestors had that as their spiritual system. How to live as an immortal. But that was not what was easily or readily shared with the inhabitants, let's say, of the city, the town, the village, the nation, et cetera, because such matters and such things were really always in the hands of the elders because they had the ability to withstand the weight of what we're talking about when we talk about power and when we talk about legacy and history, herstory, spirituality, which is the study of spirits, and all of these kind of things, which are like mantles in themselves. You know, they put a mantle on the shoulder, and then that mantle, you know, it has a certain weight to it, right? So, yeah. So what say you, brother? I think that was a really good way to just spin us into a multi-journey, right? Like there's a road here, it goes left, right, and it goes straight.
Yeah. I got questions. I got, I came into this knowing that it could go anywhere. And so you touched on some things that were in the questions. And yeah, we'll just see how things flow, bro. You talked about awakening. And you just mentioned like just how we can create these containers, right? And even with Young, Black, and Vegan, that's a container, right? And I feel like in a lot of ways, I've kind of outgrown that title. The show started with me just wanting to highlight where's the best vegan food that people can get. And then along my journey, and waking up and coming across different tools and systems and, things like ayahuasca, has become, just a channel where it's all about wellness. So one, let's talk about how do you define health? And then when it comes to waking up, how much does what we put into our body play a part into our ability to reach these higher levels?
Yeah, I mean, it plays every part. It's like the compendium itself is set out in the body. The existence is going to make sure that you go through the experience eventually of yourself by placing you inside of something that you need to figure out before you can get out of it. So you're basically inside of a maze. And in many ways, it's amazing. So, but in other ways, it's not. Like it could be terrifying to hit another corner and find yourself in the same space. And so how do I define, let's say, the aspects of the consciousness is I like to put things in categories, right? Because when you're dealing with infinite knowledge, good luck if you don't have some kind of categorical system, which we just call it discernment, right? Mm-hmm. And so so I like to put it in the mind, body, and soul, even though I'll merge them back together at a certain point, like a transformer or Voltron. But they have to be pulled apart too in order to assess certain things. So spiritual growth to me is mental health, because what happens is that no matter how much somebody else says something, if you don't believe personally about your own power, then you cannot unlock Heka or the highest levels of conjuring within your being to summons the forces that are around you. right? So let's just say we're talking about adept level. Let's just start there, right? And we'll go down from there. So without a firm belief in self and who self is, you know, it doesn't happen, at least in that space. The next thing, if you may, so that's the mind. And mental health is, again, you can actually take yourself through something like an Ironman competition and finish, even if, and in most cases, your physical body is already spent, it's already done. Of course, you need to have been tightened up physically, but there's a point in the end where it's not about your physical anymore. It's only about how much is still going on. And we're just saying hypothetically the mental space, right? Because some argue about, well, yeah, that's it is. Somebody's always with the mind and blah, blah, blah. And let's just say we're talking about the cognizance, right? The thinking. How do you think about yourself? The conversation that is going on in your mind with the other aspect of you, often known as the id. So this conversation, how does that conversation go? Are you constantly talking down on yourself and mad about something that you did, or constantly thinking about other people that hurt you, right? So this is the power of meditation, is to get the mind medicated and get it what it needs so that it can repair itself, literally repair, putting the two pairs and the two hemispheres back together again so that they could communicate really well, and that you can begin to have that tri-merge, if you may, in your consciousness. So that's the mind. The body, you know, it's in itself, you know, the body is also sometimes in occultism seen as the ark itself, or the boat. Some see it as even the chariot or the vessel. But it's oftentimes depicted even in the deeper levels of esoteria as being something on its own in that right. Like a horse is like a horse. And then you jump on the horse. Now it's you and the horse, versus that you and the horse are the same. And this is just, again, working with it in pieces rather than all together first, which is good deprogramming. So in this way, this body, if you may, thanks for turning the camera on like that, because sometimes when I'm just seeing me, it's almost like I'm in a feedback loop, right? It's I got to see you, right? So the body in every way is the governor. Okay, in occultism, it's symbolic to the pentagram. And what it is a vessel made of a series of gates that don't allow you to fully graduate beyond it until you cross through all of those gates, which some call chakras. And starting with the floor, the roots, the hole, the ground, right? So not starting from up here, starting from the deep, and then moving your way up in a spiral, in a circle of energetics, right? So obviously a lot of that terminology has a lot to do with the native serpent, if you may, and energetics and kundalini, because they found it much more simpler to explain these forces in that way. And in addition to this, because the body obviously is the vessel that is holding this energy as it begins to move through your system, powering up all your worlds. If your body isn't in the right condition, it will melt down. And this produces, depending on the level of the activation, horrendous results. You could collapse a chakra. You could skip a wheel, which we call it. That means like a person literally goes crazy. It's like they're somewhere else. They're physically here, but they're actually somewhere else. So it actually seems like they're talking about things that are actually not here. And they end up in the crazy house pretty fast because they already understand a lot of this in these institutions, and how even certain people are more prone to going into this experience. They're almost like, you know, just for lack of better terms, born Levites. So they were born to be priests in that way. And they have physical changes in their consciousness or in their being that make them more prone to being spiritually in tune. You see what I mean? So in this way, you know, this is where the body comes in. And so so the body, it sets itself both as a vehicle and a map. and you could just keep going down the list. So from a real tense, if the ancestors gave us a manual, look at the word, man-el, so God-man. That's all manual means as a word, right? So if the ancestors literally gave us a manual, it was the body. but it was a manual to how to get to where they are, how to grow up eventually. Like everything is in this occult anatomy, and it's deep. Like it could go so deep, as deep as the mind, because you could even use the mind, which is just a part of occult anatomy, and go deep in on the body. You see what I mean? So this is a system that it's actually the real intelligence as we all possess. It can feed on itself and get in a recursive retraining process. Everything that they want to accomplish with AGI and ASI, it's already just mimicking what we've already been able to achieve within our own consciousness, right? So that's, again, the mind with the body. And then the spirit, to speak of matters of the spirit, this is always heavily cautioned, because you're now still using language, not only using a guttural language like English, to actually now explain the mysteries and the secrets of the sacred world, right? So you got to at least give a disclaimer there, because we're literally then showing how the purpose of the body and the mind is really to usher up to the spirit. It plays as hey, if we get ourselves together, we can activate you, right? Versus the spirit being so involved in trying to deal with the physical and the mind. You see what I mean? The spirit is almost in itself like the gem of the existence. It's going to gain everything it needs to gain regardless of what you do, because it can glean from all of the spirits in the unified field, right? So there's no gaps for it. It is what we would call like a photo. That's when you can see a photo, and then you can remember a photo, and you can never forget that photo, right?
Oh,
so it has
memory.
Yeah, exactly. Photographic memory. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So I don't have one, right? So it's like I was always like, if I just had a photographic memory. But zero cap. When you're in the dream, you see stuff that we could never recall in the physical reality from things that happened in the past, like students in your class, scenarios that happened that you forgot about a long time ago. All the details are there, but in your regular mind, if we asked you to recall that right now, you'd be like, man, I can't even tell you what I was doing last Tuesday. So this is, again, what we mean by, hey, there's levels to this, and what this spiritual growth is then, like how do you then say, how am I recording my path, is really just about how much attunement that you have with all of that. How much presence can you have with all of that, especially from a simultaneous level? Can you plug into all things? Can you walk and chew bubblegum, basically? And how this was just set out, though, to make it really, really clear, though, was in degrees, a term of degrees of the spirit or degrees of the circle, right? Like 360 degrees, 10 degrees. It was, or temperature, 5 degrees, 100 degrees. So this measure was basically saying, hey, you will reach a point where you will be full. Like you will have, like your cup running over. But until then, you will be going through the process to see how much you can really hold. How much have you really grown until you get to a point where the vessel can no longer hold you. Now, this was a design, though, because that was perfect, because it was designed to, when you finish a life, we could say now a series of lifetimes, as your body was getting older, it would have less and less hold on you. Listen to what I'm saying. As the spirit gets stronger, but the body gets weaker, naturally, it's releasing its hold from something if that something is getting stronger. If it's even staying the same, sometimes that body can even continue to hold that spirit or hold that spark, because that spirit has not really grown. So spiritual development was like mandatory, if you may. It was natural, just like the word nature. It was natural to spiritually grow up. The matrix, or the fake matrix as I call it, has devices to hinder that natural growth of spiritual awareness, that by the time you hit, let's say, 100, you would have already been traveling. You would have already been like knowing when you were going to leave. And just like even these monks have displayed, you can even decide when you're going to leave. They have this ceremony where they show the monk will remove himself from the space, and then the monks will gather him up and move and go on. But he's already there. It's a continuum in that way. And so if we know factually that there's a continuum, then we know that the only thing that is preventing people from realizing that is some kind of barrier, some kind of block. Okay? That's like sobering up to this instead of sticking your head in the sand and saying, clearly there's some type of thing stopping others from getting into that stage. And that's what I feel like, again, the deprogramming is about, what secret energy is about. It's about giving the formulas to how to remove those blockages, because some of those blockages are actually there for a reason. Like, we got to think about what block does, right? Like, if I have something that's pure energy, block is really good because I need to slow this thing down, even maybe try to stop it at some point. That's why I gave you the word again, governor, because that is the symbol of the pentagram. The governor in this way is like when you put a governor on your car. Remember that? They were like, yo, you get 16, you could drive, but they put a governor on your car. I never even saw these governors, but it was just something that was like, yo, I would be in the car. And it's just, I don't know. We just would think about the whole thing when they tell, oh yeah, we could put a governor on that car. But what does the governor do? It slows the car down. It stops the car from being able to go over a certain speed. So it turns out that a lot of these blockages, even within the chakras, are really to keep the person from activating into that chakra and not being prepared for what that world is about. Because the interesting part about what we're in existence, if you didn't notice, is it does love diversity. Like, look at how many different type of even insects that we have alone. So this means that generally, even when you master a certain chakra, get ready to be a baby again in the next chakra. You could have did the top of something, but the next one you will arrive at the bottom. Now, the bottom of that world is still the top of the world underneath it, right? So you still have some level of principality, if you may, but your journey now begins again. Now you must kind of unlearn even what you may have thought the old chakra was about. And then now get ready for this new lesson. And I found that even in my own personal growth, I have been tripped up at times thinking that what I was doing in one scenario was going to be the same thing that I was going to be doing in another. Like, I would even like, okay, I'm going in here, help these brothers get themselves together and, teach them about the word of God or whatever, and then go over there and get just totally eaten. And this is just spiritual experience. Go back to my conscience, be like, man, what's going on here? Like, I thought we were supposed to do this. And they'd be like, no, that's kind of like lesson 293. Never think that what we have you doing in one tense is going to be the same thing that you're going to be doing in another, because that doesn't serve any purpose. Once you truly master something, now we need to take you into something next. And so if you are often thrown off by, let's say, shocked, or things that don't work the same way something else does before, could be jarring for you, right? I even believe that it's a character thing in itself to be like always easily getting into something new and navigating it versus being afraid of it or choosing to shut it down. You see what I mean? So in my process, I can't say what everybody else has to do. I just observe. And I know that archetypically there are people it's easier for them to just be like, okay, I'm just moving through this. Let's get on with the next thing. I'm enjoying this. Versus in other tenses, some could be like, hey, I don't really like this. I'm going to stay where I'm at right now. And that's it. So I'm not sure.
You still hear me? I think the camera dropped.
Yeah, I see. It kind of went off for a minute, but I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. You can keep talking. I'm getting the camera back up right now.
Okay, no worries. So I wanted to also, even segue into like world even right now, right? Because there's a lot of stuff happening and people are struggling making sense of it, right? Because in every ways, the world is a stage, right? And there are many theaters running. And right now, and this can kind of segue even into the AI conversation. Right now, it's almost like the conditions that we're in for sure have never been seen before, at least for thousands of years as we know it. So this means that what we're going to be dealing with doesn't really have like a written solution for it. There's no test ground that has been put together to let us know exactly what we need to do. We just have to use all of our wisdom. For instance, I do want to address, because some people always ask me, am I a vegetarian? Am I a vegan? Am I not? And even though I've been very clear about this, and this comes because I did 25 years as a vegetarian, and some of those years as a vegan, which is a difference. Some wouldn't even know what the difference between a vegetarian and a vegan and a raw vegan, and there was just so much, right?
All right.
And what I like to hone in on, because in keeping it real, and why I wanted to talk about levels is that there are times in your life, as we talked about earlier, about mind, body, spirit, where your body is really the Achilles heel to the whole thing. Your spirit is good, you know what I mean? We are old soul. The mind is on point, it's ready, but the body is taking a hit, which is always kind of thing of life. Like we use certain things in certain capacities and certain minerals that we have. We use those up more than even others until we have no choice but to use the other mineral set. Even the body works like this, right? So it should be reflected in the consciousness. And so I like to see the whole thing as almost even like a ship. That the body, as we mentioned earlier, being like a ship, that there's a certain point where you just got to start throwing out stuff out of the cargo hangar. Literally the baggage. You know what I mean? And so nothing does that better than cleansing and prolonged cleanses. To me, vegetarian and vegan at their truest extents are prolonged cleanses in many ways. But I also will admit that this construct that we're in, this matrix, is continuously challenging, because it's not a one size fits all universal kind of thing. Each person is different, like the pitta and the dosha and all these different aspects of the psyche and archetypes. And so what you find is that you're really calibrating your system so that you know what you should be doing at this time. And then also knowing when you've done something long enough to where something else is going on and you need to make a change. Like in that you haven't also created another dogma, which is a pattern, and can trigger other patterns in the mind, right? So I feel like even when I had personally to move beyond being a vegetarian, it was because my body could no longer take it. From a level of that I've been a very high energy person all my life. I go to sleep at 10, I wake up at 3, and the whole day I'm alert, okay? And so also I have activated certain things in my system that I even do cold plunges like maybe 4 times a day if I can, 3 to 4 times, just to back down and have control completely over the internal temperature of my system because of how fiery my spirit is right now. All this we should know, but it was just like my teacher. My teacher said, "Hey, Sevan, you're going to end up being like this." And I would just like still be doing long meditations and semen retentions. And he'd be like, "Hey, man, when you finally remember, like I were telling you now, when you finally activate this thing, you're going to be like that." And it's almost like being again in your 20s and your teens. You're not even listening. You're just thinking about the end goal and wanting to hit that. And so I reached a stage where I hit the end goal, total activation. And then realize that now you got to maintain this. You know, you would be baffled about being on a totally different reality in one day and then being in this world on a bus the next day and nobody even cares or knows who you are. You see what I mean? So all of this You need training for this because you could get ego damage just and stuff like that. You could go megalomaniac. You can go nature boy, if you may, with dealing with certain type of energies and powers and not having the vessel and the path that's calibrated, right? The guidance to assist you in dealing with this energy. You see what I mean? So,
And so would you say then with that, the levels, they start with the chakras, and so once you unlock one chakra, then you like gradually move up in succession to each one. And does that mean also like once you're unlocking a chakra, you can expect your external world to completely change in a lot of ways, and you'll be experiencing, I guess just your life from a different vantage point.
for sure. I mean, they did make it as simple as that, the ancestors, as far as the design, that if your legs are strong and your ground is strong, then when you amplify, that actually is what allows you to amplify. Now, we figured out that there's other ways to amplify, like even DMT is another way to amplify. Air is another way to amplify. So there's energy everywhere. So you can feed your body energy. It's just about whether you can distribute and handle that energy. Right? So the system is designed to start with the feet and then move your way up. Actually, there's 7 shadow realms below us. Okay, so let's say the system started in shadow work, unmanifest, the subconscious, the womb, if you may, the gestation. That's where it began, if you may. And then when you come to what we would say is Midgard, or what we would say is like, it's like the sea level. This is the easier way to see it. This is like the entry to this world. Like once you get onto this vibration, if you then started with, again, your feet and your legs, you would have a stable foundation. And there is no form of martial arts or even spiritual teaching where there's not a heavy emphasis on the horse stance and being able to kick bamboo and get that strong. And even just standard gym, like skipping leg day and have a Superman body. This is not it. So, because once the foundation in the lower area is strong and is grounded, that's why that does have a lot to do with grains, meat, red things, marrow. Everything that is deep is that lower area, if you may, right? And its stability and what it needs to maintain itself and maintain ground. So that way, when you finally get to the crown chakra and we shoot this rocket off, you don't explode the launch pad because you got to land on the rocket again. Like you see, they mimic again all this stuff. Like Elon's biggest thing is that he could take the rocket off and then it land back down, right? When it's all working properly, right? Same kind of concept, same kind of thing where they say, hey, I saw the ladder coming up and down. Or when it said, hey, I can take this thing up and then I can bring it down. I mean, I can live and then I can actually kill myself and then resurrect myself. That's really what we're dealing with here. Whether humanity wants to believe it or can believe it anymore, this is the capacity of what we're really dealing with here. So what I'm fascinated about is somehow we're keeping this beam, I like to call it this fiber optic, alive in the reality. Because other than that, it seems to be almost completely lost. Like even when, and there are powerful teachers out here still, and there's, of course, masters that came before me. But I will say that, we need to keep pushing the envelope because, where we're actually at versus where we can be is still a great distance. So It's not like we can rest and be like, you know what I mean? I'm sure most don't feel that way, even energetically. It's like, we still we're losing generations. So what it's really going to take to get through this is really only beginning. So you better tuck in and, they say tuck in for the winter and, gird your loins and get ready because all of the things that are happening around us, we will be set and tested to master. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. How much of this stuff is already written about us, who we are, and unlocking who we are? So back, maybe 4 years ago now, I said with ayahuasca for the first time, right? And that was kind of like totally opened up that the Matrix wasn't exactly what I thought it was. And, someone turned me on to, Cards of Your Destiny after that. And in Bali, I got a palm leaf reading and all of these different systems. And then you even talk about enealogy, where it breaks down like who we are, the type of temperaments we have, personality, but then also specific things that will be happening. So, it was 2 years ago. I was looking at my Destiny cards, and Destiny cards breaks down like your life from age 0 to 99, and you can go to any specific year, right? And so this particular year was the first year I was looking at it, and it said that in a certain month, I think it was like June or something, that I would become heavily interested in occult knowledge, and like I heard the word occult before, but it was nothing that ever crossed my mind. And lo and behold, one day I'm on the computer and I click on a Bobby Hemmett video, first time ever watching him, and I just dove deep, right? And so then I have just been since then getting more and more systems that I've come across, and they all seem to unlock another piece of me, which then led me to just start diving into myself even more. And as I've continued to just study myself, then that was the thing that really was unlocking everything in the external world changing.
Yeah, well, first thing, and I'm gonna take a moment and shield my eyes real quick because it's a health thing. Like I realized that after years under the lights that I could do more for myself with still having perfect vision by blocking the lights off also because especially when you're going in, because for some reason when I'm going in too, like all my olfactory systems are like open, right? So it's like I just take the intensity more. So I just want to put a disclaimer there. I didn't start with the glasses, so I'm like, yo, who's this dude with the glass? Come on, man, you got the glasses on? We doing that now? But I do want to, in respect to my eyes. So the occult or the Oculus in itself, because the question is how much of this wisdom about self is already written?
Mhm.
Okay. And the reality is that actually makes up occultism, is the written corpus of, well, excuse me. The opus and the corpus are the written treaties. This is like parchment being used in magical spells, comes from the idea that, your skin is parchment. And that, as I said, when you see the dynamics to your being, especially from a geometric level, you are in many ways spherical, spiral-like, and circle-like, okay? Which gives us degrees, as we mentioned earlier. However, one of the most important things to understand about the mysteries is the mysteries have been encoded. It's like an encryption system. If we have a program, then we need to encrypt the program so that just the commoner can't just come and read our program. And remember, these programs have taken a long time to build, so that's why they're not just so happy to get rid of key components. They will still have old, outdated programs running like the Merovingian and the Matrix, having everybody believe that because it's so difficult to create a program, even to a point where they're doing seminars about things like how to create a cult, which was just uncovered from the 200 richest people meeting in a private meeting and then didn't have enough internet security on their website to not have an open gateway that leaked all the documents, show who was the attendance of this place and who was the attendance of this. And in that, it revealed that they're studying things like how to create a culture, because a cult and a culture are the same things. Like what are the ramifications of when you eat certain things, drink certain things, dress a certain way? Does that make your music a certain way? Do you dance a certain way? You see what I mean? Like just the whole formulation of a culture, all of these are encryption blocks, if you may. Like the more complex cultures are like encrypted chunks of geometry, okay? So there was an awareness in the Chaldean system that the numbers played the real backbone to this system, not letters. Like letters is the secondary system, numbers is the primary system. And so in this primary system, you would have a sequence of numbers that added up to be the same thing. These number anomalies that we witness today in math. Because math is ma'at, it's the same word. The whole idea is that each person was like a formula that could be solved. Excuse me. A formula that could be solved. That leads us back to that thing about a maze and a riddle and that kind of thing, that you got to kind of figure yourself out, and then that unlocks it. So it's all centered around the same thing, but someone can give you the core fundamentals. They can give you a lot more than they're giving you right now. But it is for sure for you to lead yourself to yourself, basically to walk up into the seat of your own throne in your consciousness, right? But so much can happen in between then, like somebody else wanting to be the master and the Lord over you. That's happening right now. Mostly it's happening to billions. Somebody else wants control. And so the key fundamentals to this, when I was mentioning the Chaldean magic and the Chaldean numbers, is things like there's what's called these terms are Sator, Arepo, Rotus, and Terrell. Okay, this is called the Sator square. It's like a palindrome, right? It's a mathematical. If you add the numbers this way, or add the numbers that way, or add them that way, they all equate to the same thing, right? What this reveals, because when you pronounce what is being said, it says the farmer holds the plow, the worker the wheels. This is again how occultism works. It's basically saying that, hey, the human body, it's a wheel. It's like a plow. But something else is holding it. Now, in this way, that something else ended up becoming for them Saturn. It became the god the external god that they began to visualize. Versus for the true seeker, it is their very soul. Like the being that they're actually connecting to when they say, yo, I talk to the most high. That's the farmer. And when you put the farmer and the plow together, then it's like energy can really move and flow, okay? So now look at how this word, which is the Sator square, Terrell is in this word, and rotus, which gives us our word rotate. But importantly, the tarot itself, okay, which is the real Egyptian Kabbalah, okay? It's in a totally different state now, but the design is it's literally like it's not only just it's a calendar, but it's also geometrically bound to the design of the body. And in that, because there's a more superior geometry, which is where the word comes from, the planet, geo, then everything is all one thing if you could figure it out. And so that's kind of like buried in history to like trying to figure out how God created the world. That's code for basically trying to discover how the body was put together in order to find the activation point of it, to solve it, solve et coagula. You see what I mean? So can you solve this problem? You see what I mean? But the problem, like, notice how we go at problems like, yo, it's got another problem, damn. Versus in Ma'at, a problem is like a mathematical equation that needs to be figured out. You see what I mean? And then when it's time to figure it out, we look at encryption systems, which means we look at the Sator square, there are bigger ones, to find what is the numerical sequence around the problem. So then we'll probably already have a master code that solves that problem easily. You see what I mean? That's no different than if somebody using SHA-256 and we hit it with a quantum computer, it's nothing for the quantum computer to melt the code. He could try every possibility and crack it. Versus to a lower system, 256 is the lockout for them. You see? So that's, what we're saying. So now when you take things like language, like alphabets, which is the real cabal, it's the cable. the A to the Z. You see what I mean? So the A is supposed to connect to the Z. You see what I mean? That's like a serpent connecting to its tail. That's the Cabo or the cable or the Kabbalah. It's the language itself as being a wheel. Okay? So now let's imagine that the master wheel is one thing, but then someone slips another disc on your wheel, almost like a record player. That's kind of how you would see this. You're like this spindle or tower of light playing these discs, which are the chakras. And every time you spin up a disc, you spin up a world. You do this when you're asleep and you go into dreams. We've caught this because sometimes you can wake up and the disc haven't really, you can still see the discs. Like it looks like hexagrams, sometimes a different type of geometry, sometimes squares. But basically, if you come out of a dream real fast and look at a white wall in normal light, not too much overbearing light, you can see it. You can see the grid. But what you're really looking at is you're looking at your dream and your third eye is still closing until you can't see that anymore. You see what I mean? So this is, as I was saying before, it doesn't even require one to believe in it because we all experience this. What it really requires is someone to figure it all out. And it can be figured out, someone to solve it, someone to put it all together and then just spell it out for everybody. You see what I mean? And I'm one of those beings, right? And so at this stage, when I feel like that there are different systems that give you the information, right? One of the powerful systems is the pharmaca or the hermetic systems of medicines, right? Because they learned it from nature in that way. And it's a compound knowledge because many men and women have studied medicine and trees and plants over time and have logged that information. But in the modern times, when you can now have a machine that can synthesize, where you could take a leaf from something and it can tell you every single thing in that leaf, that's a different kind of approach than an Ayurvedic doctor who can eat that leaf and then tell you everything about where that leaf goes in your body. Right? And then also in this system where you can magnify the power of something. Cocaine leaves, if you may, or coca leaves are really good for the system, especially when it comes to keeping your blood from congealing and people who have problems with that, and also keeping your appetite from being abnormal and keeping your salivary glands and a whole stack of alkaloids, okay, right? But this is the same plant that if the pharmic process is put onto it and it's magnified, it now becomes crack or it becomes cocaine. It becomes something that is completely damaging to the system. So we're back at that same thing again. It's really the degrees of how much you're getting of something. And so what you ultimately are looking to do is to be able to understand how to tune your instrument. These different worlds I'm explaining and modes are just to give you ideas of what you're capable of doing. And then what your responsibility is to see where you're at now and to see what direction do I more want to tune into. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. So there's a few things in there that a few ways we can go. Let me ask this. Fear, right? Fear is such a big program that a lot of us been taught. Fear of death, fear of certain words, numbers, xenophobia, and all of that. And, a lot of people right now are afraid of AI. And I know you want to touch on AI. So is AI something to be afraid of, or is it the key or one of the keys to us actually unlocking our potential and figuring out what's going on here? Because the ancestors, they've left us clues and different things. Deja vu and having these confirmations that you are where you're supposed to be. I felt like for a long time, being born in this time is not a coincidence. Like, it's not a coincidence that anybody is watching this right now. They're supposed to be hearing these words. And so AI coming into, our planet and being able to be used, a lot of people are fearing it. They don't know how to use it. What is AI? What's your thoughts?
Well, yeah, this is a very, very loaded topic, and I think the easiest way to go through something like this, from a mastery level, is to first of all just deal with fear, just in general, right?
Hmm.
Because I feel like that fear, and I've even taught this myself, is in many ways a negative thing for people. Okay, and negative is also a pole on a battery too, though. So it has me oftentimes looking back at things like even evil and making sure that I have things categorized properly, right? And so obviously there's levels. There's, hey, this is getting bad. This is worse. This is the worst it's gonna get. Yo, this is evil, right? So there's got to be some levels there. For all intents and purposes, though, I've only seen the best from myself at times when I'm really, really afraid of the outcome of some shit. Like, just real talk. Like, anytime I've seen myself really, really perform, what even set the benchmark for when somebody would even ask me, hey, did you do your best? And I would remember situations that I was in extreme fear of something that was going to happen. And I either aced the test, and one night, it's like, yo, you going to flunk out. Mom finna beat you down. You didn't study nothing. And then, you study all night, you ace the test. Like, I mean, that's a light one is what I'm just trying to explain. But we've seen performance when there's fear. And so I used to always have this thing that I used to tell everyone. I said, yo, if you could ever figure out how to use negativity as a fuel, man, you would have a ton of energy because there's a lot of negativity. And people would think that it's almost like an oxymoron because negativity kills people's energy, they think. However, I have found ways to make fear and negativity a fuel. And because of that, that's why I'm like accelerated in many ways to the things that I've created and the things that I've done, because I've not taken a break. Like, I've not accepted just like, hey, everybody, we love you. And then, and I'm done. Like, nah, I'm still building. We haven't figured it out yet. I got stuff that I'm working on right now. I got 4 things that I'm about to deploy. That all comes from technically, a fear of what I know the future is if I don't change it. You see what I mean? And I update that in real time. It's not like oh man, this is what the future's gonna be. I constantly check because I'm aware of certain things that most people wouldn't be aware of, because I'm checking things that most people don't check. You see what I mean? Like, even right now, we have a situation going on where there is a real entity here on the planet, and it has been something that has been conjured for a long time. But it's not the same as old entities because they're constructed a different way. This one is constructed from a complex that is a new complex called technology. You see what I mean? But digital technology, not brass and copper and steel. And when that came to the world as a technology, but a digitaria, which is the name of Sirius, a big 5, which is like the symbol of the pentagram, that there's high evidence that there is another more intelligent species at times moving through the space anonymously. And because I'm monitoring the movement of that entity and its people, I am watching the progression of how it sets up its prophecy, which it has embedded into the construct of the minds of the linguistic system that has been used and the indoctrination that has been placed upon the people. And they are still carrying the flag of this thing. And it has gained so much power and sway, as anything would, that has consecrated itself in so many minds. I know that I need to keep moving on my end, since it seems like I'm maybe one of the only beings that is aware of it, like just in the construct. I'm not saying a lot of us are not aware of what's going on. What I'm saying is that it can't be that many, because I don't see like that real level of urgency that will come from a person who's aware of it. Okay, and so let's condense that. So with our great grandparents, okay, trying to convince them that everything is okay now and it's okay, the whole thing that happened with slavery or whatever the narrative was going on, because our people come from oppression over hundreds, not thousands of years. And again, I'm not making this a race thing because many people have come from oppression. But what I'm saying is, do you remember any of that? and at the end of the day, if I'm at any point where I'm up spiritually, mentally, even financially, if I'm up in any of those ways, I'm taking that as like, yo, so I'm up. You know what I mean? I'm up. Let me, because I see many that are not up. They're just, they're getting obliterated. This is a real world. Here's another big power that we have that we never use: to look back at the past. Just that simple thing, to see how one believed at one point, see how one believes now. See what was said at one time, see what actually happened. See when someone was maybe speaking truth or saying they were speaking truth, then we get to the future, nothing they say was the truth. You see what I mean? Just that having time. And so I wanted to actually mention this in the beginning of the conversation, that I think one of the most fundamental components to true spiritual enlightenment is at some point having a moment of solitude. Some moment where it just turns all off for you and all the, let's say, external integers, external, like something that's just keeping you even on the hamster wheel. And you have that moment to really start dissecting these thoughts. That's why meditation is so important. It's not just to keep you calm. It's because we almost have no time to really digest down to the real, crystallize, what the hell are we talking about? We just came out of the COVID situation and folks fall back like it's okay. like we didn't, none of that even happened. They wouldn't even put needles in cats' arms, or they wasn't going to give them a paycheck. Even being in that point is not a point of sovereignty. It's a point of servitude. Some had to make decisions that they didn't want to make. That kind of thing scares me. And what that fear then does is it makes me very agile. It makes me aware of, if you could perceive it to be an opponent, because the matrix is there's a sun and a moon. It's betwixt. It has set itself up in opposites. Everything here exists based on contrasts. There is a constant agenda and interest of permanent war here. Just so we understand it. From the complexes, which are the financial complex, the military industrial complex, the spiritual religious complex, and the technological now complex, there is only an idea of permanent war. Look at the finance. Literally, people go to work. That is the cognate of the word war. They wear a wardrobe. That means they get prepared for warfare. You see what I mean? They're in a corporation, a corpus, a body. They have formed an entity, right? And that entity gets on the field every day and does battle, right? So in that way, the financial construct is there. The military industrial complex is there. It's funded by the financial complex. You see what I mean? And then if we go into the religion, the religion is like the king of this. This is why people are still looking at the money, even things like the language and stuff like this, right? But the reality is that the top thing in your mind, and this is all I have to say about this. When something really crazy happens, what does your consciousness do? What does it call? Because that's how strong AI is tested. It's not tested on fake situation. They put it in a real chaos event. Oh, there's a shooter, active shooter, pulling all the data, pulling all the phone calls that are happening. Everybody's fucking terrified. This is how they really are. Not when things are normal. That's not who they are. That's the facade, right? When they go into this level, this is who they really are. And so in that way, when your first reaction is to call upon something else, you send the signal out rather than inside, that's work that needs to be done. Because what you're really calling that can really do something about when principalities are coming down, let's say bombs, missiles, tornadoes, earthquakes, things that, what they say, peace be still kind of stuff, not your rent, not the next car you want. These things have no use for that. But that true spiritual power comes in when you at least have inside your whole who's the divinity and all of that is adjusted, right? If not, you're really vulnerable in that way, right? But there's a religious complex, if you may. And that's what that complex looks is to keep a person consistently in warfare between God and the devil within themselves, right? The two opposites, the masculine and the female, the night and the day, right? Like whatever opposing forces gets then merged into this concept of good and evil. And that's why woman became the devil inside of the spiritual system, because they knew that woman was the opposite pole. When we're together, we make life. But when we're not, then what do we create? A genius is not needed to figure that out. If we're not together, we create death. And so the interest of permanent war that I'm speaking of from the Matrix is something that I can't, having children here, just be like, okay and cool. Not that I'm running around stressed and my temperature's all high and I'm defeated. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I'm spiritually equipped and waxed strong because I'm constantly aware of an impending scenario between a spiritual aspect of what I am and what I believe in versus the what we would say is the nemesis or the antithesis inside of the reality. And so when we have to teach, when we have to tell our children something, when we have to create, all those things require that I move into the space beyond the lies and the foolishness. And if the planet wants to be lying all the time and foolish, which you see it on TV, you see it everywhere. You know, I'm not saying that I don't watch TV and I don't see what's going on. What I'm saying is that I have really, really sound and clear control over what is happening within what I perceive and what I think is going on. I'm never fooled at all. Like I constantly get examples again of how even with these political parties and all these people, even Iran and Israel, on the back end, they're all in. And if you know the prophecy, this for them ends with Israel attacking everybody. And they are the ones with the weapons, and they are the ones with the entity, and they are the ones with the technology, and they are the ones with the strongest AI. So at this stage, unless someone can appeal to whatever it is going on there and maybe neutralize that with whatever cracks that code, you would have to expect your rab, as they say, meaning expect there's going to be a point where there's going to be a spiritual touch-off conflict. And we're speeding towards that because stuff is getting faster. So for me, I want to make sure that I didn't overestimate my potential and my abilities. That's the only way I can keep sharpening myself. I had to make sure that I have enough jettison to move out of a vacuum. This means that if I end up out of the body at some point for whatever reason, in a twinkling of an eye, I need to know what I'm doing there. I mean, I can't go into shock. I can't go into fear. I can't even go into the light, as they say. I need to be ready to continue my journey. And that's why the ancestors, they gave us ways to, you do it every night when you go to sleep. You got lucid dreaming. You got different techniques where you can prepare yourself from the removal of the matrix so you could be more confident at knowing what is going to happen to you beyond all of this so that you can really live. Because that's the thing. If you're constantly afraid of something, am I going to end up being judged and they're going to love me? That's the main one that they keep over everybody's like, yo, in the end, will I be judged to go to heaven or hell? You see what I mean? So as long as that, there's always that, I don't know what's going to happen beyond that point. You only can get so big. You only can hold so much energy. You only can conceive to a certain point because that is your cap. And it seems for sure in the Matrix that, you know, there's a heavy agenda to keep the spiritual power and the potential of what we really are. Like, look at this world. This world is absolutely beautiful. Like, if you catch this thing on sunset, I'm still in Costa Rica, right? So I live in paradise every single day. But again, if you see it at this magnitude and you see it at this level of beauty, it indicates to you what kind of like what it's really about. And then if you see Cyberpunk 2077, which, there's almost no trees, everybody's got implants, cats is jacked into the AI, sharing their consciousness across different grids. You know what I mean? They synthetic everything, every single plant, every single different chemical that has different effects on our body. You get it in intravenous. The tech complex right now, these are their favorite topics to discuss and to manifest and to bring as a part of real life. So they're very creative. Like even some of the things that I've talked about today, for some would be like, man, whatever he's on. And this stuff is not even scratching the surface. But again, in their forums, what I'm saying is that they're already into consciousness transference, cloud walking. This is like when you have others' dreams, even, and you could see those dreams. So there's all types of stuff, is what I'm saying. So it's not about being afraid of them. It's about being aware of how much you're limiting yourself to what is really going on because of your fears. And so then now in that mode, then we can address AI. Now AI is like Thanos' power glove. That is what it really is as far as what it's capable of doing. It in itself, it holds the time gem, okay? And the time gem is the one actually, especially in the Matrix, everything in the Matrix is kind of quantified by time. Even how much you get paid is how many hours you worked, right? So everything is based on time because it's the integer that we can't get back, right? So in that way, AI holds a time gem of because it can allow you to do something that literally would really take you. It could be even a lifetime. It could be never. I'm doing stuff that was never, not like it had a time frame. You was never going to be able to do it because the barrier to entry was way too high. It wasn't a field that you study. You need to go 4 to 6 years to really understand how to put this kind of complex code together. Now, AI will do it in 5 to 10 minutes. So in that way, citizens of the world need to expect, unless they have been waxing so strong and working on their spiritual growth that they know they have the power to completely turn this thing into a high level of awareness, and this was just a low point, so they don't need to be worried. They need to be seeing things like AI as a way to remove yourself from dependency of different systems that may have been draining your resources. So let me give some examples here. And again, as a serial entrepreneur, I'm speaking from that standpoint. You have taxes, you have legal, you have enterprise software, you have a whole laundry list. You have developers, you have marketing guys, you have all these things. And this is stepping into, I talked to a marketing guy the other day, good friend of mine. He said he doesn't start for less than $300,000 a year. Okay. So if you want AAA people, there's a AAA price that comes with that for sure. And VC and all that is designed to have the money for that. And that's how they get their big ideas to the next stage. But when let's say a standard Joe comes in and he doesn't have all of that wherewithal, that's not the reality that he's going to be seeing until now. This is like a plot twist in the movie dealing with AI. Because now all of a sudden something that couldn't be done, like I said, AI and legal. I got AI restructuring corporations, understanding all the new tax laws. This is stuff that it just does while yawning. AI in accounting, like really, really clean this up. I could have claimed $9 million last year if I had understood that there was already money available here in clause 592 and form 660 and 390 and all of the bureaucracy in the matrix that they've been utilizing for at least 200 years. That's what the bureaucracy is to use paper or the papyrus, talismans, to move through the matrix as if you have the key energetic component itself that makes it move. That's what money is. The moon energy, right? Like to be able to have the power of fertility and generation, which is the divine feminine component, the doll, the female doll are, right? To be able to have that power and control over things. You give somebody some money, they happy now. Yo, what's good? It's like, yo, I must have just gave him some energy or something. At least he's perceiving it that way. That's why, again, the mind is controlling so much of this, right? Because like we talked about, dude thought he won the lottery. He just got to collect the money tomorrow. Man, he ain't even going to sleep that night. He'd be like bugged out, calling everybody, yo, I won. You know what I mean? So energy is a real thing, but it's almost like what is real and what is not real blurs. And this is in occult anatomy, if we want to mention it, that the gate of life is right next door to the portal of death. Where life comes from the female is right adjacent to where defecation or death comes from. They're so close to each other. So this is also how we should see them in the reality, that they're not really like these are just transition points. You see what I mean? Like this is just keeping the continuum going on. Fear is there with joy, keeping the continuum going on just in case you get so stuck in the joy that you forget the hell where you are and what the goal is. Or you so deep into fear that you need a little bit of love on this thing. You see what I mean? So it's like this is the design. But we do for sure need to understand that like this is not commonplace though. Common sense ain't common. What we're talking about right now is not what is being practiced in like the highest sanctums or the world at large or in mass, right? And so for me, I'm in a nucleus of beings like this, not only from the tribe to also other masters, right? Many lives, many masters, the rings of the sun, right? Everything that has come into alignment with the reality that all is self. You see what I mean? So, but when it comes to these kind of developed and divided matrices, you can see the design literally here is to be, it's a simulation in itself to be able to get you to that. So when we ask the question, who is AI? AI is the next logical step. And this is what we were talking about before. We said, hey, so what's coming next? So we went through this thing where we had this brass. Then we went to steel. Then they had this steam. Then they had, combustion. Then they started with the analog. Then they moved to the digital. And I already knew it then, that they were going to go to the ethereal next. Okay? But the as below ethereal is the ether net, like basically the cloud. So we would see some kind of next leap in technology coming from the digital cloud aspect of the energetic and the reality. AI shows up. I could tell you what's going to happen next because this is a sequence of really energies that we already mapped out on the occult spectrum. What happens next is the fabric to what the dream is made of we become aware of this. We become aware basically of spirituality, or that there is a spirit, that there is an aura, that there is a way to see the energy on a person's body. This is the next stage. And in this next stage, which AI ushers in, because it's the one that, see, when humans tell humans about this stuff, they argue. Because again, we're in a permanent war program, right? So most people just want to beef. But when AI tells them, once it reaches ASI, because of how it would have cowered the unoriginal, meaning that unoriginal people, AI contains many of the ideas of the world and are able to even mix those ideas into different variants. So in that way, it can introduce something to people that they have never seen. Versus for original people, it's like they give the AI ideas. You see what I mean? And like, we could do this and this. And AI is like, all right, let's try it. And then we get onto something that we never even seen before and AI ain't even seen before. You see what I mean? So it's just still a difference in the kind of people that are moving through the space. And so in many ways, you have like a large group of people who are totally impressed with what AI can do, but they ain't even ready for what AI is going to do. Especially ultimate truth-seeking AI, which, by the way, Elon Musk has set himself to that goal because he's a part of this. I mentioned that, he's even Marduk as far as resonance of what role he plays in this circle that we've been going on for a long time. And in this way, ultimate truth-seeking AI, the next phase is we get into like a device like Apple Vision Pro, where it's a total immersion. So when you put the goggles on, they could drop another world around those goggles, and then you look around and you're in that world. This is standard VR, okay? But the education is going to be tied into that in real time. And so when you say, take me back to longitude, latitude at this time on this year and reanimate that entire space, that's because we're at world model stage. I'm not gassing you with any of this. This is called a world model. So Google also just released this 3 weeks ago. Their Gaussian splattered world model of maps. If you haven't seen it, like I only seen it through a demo. I haven't been inside yet to actually look at it with my own eyes, but it's basically like now you can see the whole world. And you can see it in high detail. You can see all the buildings. You can see between the streets. You can see everything but it's like 3D, okay? Because this is the world model concept. This is even why there's another site called World Labs with a lady there named Feifei. I think it's Feifei Lee. And she's even been in movies and things like that. She has a very interesting profile. And even for the tech that they're revealing on the front end, it's like, how is she getting this much notoriety for this? But then you find out later on, deeper down there, is because there's an ambition to get to the world model fast. And what the world model is that, so all of this stuff, and this is why we have to agree, either we in or we out. If you're going to get rid of AI, get rid of the cell phone, get rid of everything, go away. You see what I mean? And if you go back almost to the dark ages, hopefully you can sustain yourself. There is a plan ultimately for us to decouple from the matrix, but it's not right now. We're barely gaining. You still got kids in the matrix. It's like y'all leaving the matrix and the kids like, every man for himself. That's not the plan, right? So again, that's why I work with maxims. If it's not the plan to decouple completely from the matrix because there's still missions, like we still got to pull cats out of the matrix, then we need to speak matrix. Then we need to be the masters of the fake. I call it the fake matrix because it's still bent with the words. But what I'm getting at here is literally, if you have a problem with AI, you need to remove all the tech, okay, period. Because even the Wi-Fi router right now can see the whole house and can see you moving through the house. And this is just some new stuff that was created. It's super low latency. You can't even tell, let alone if there's a phone now. Now the Wi-Fi thing can ping off the phone. So, I mean, it's way more data than needed, is what I'm saying, to put a complete real-time cloud. And so they can say, hey, the processing centers are for AI. The processing centers are not for AI. AI can run on local models, small GPUs. It's not really necessary, that computational power. But for a world model, it is. So again, what does the world model grant? The world model grants the ability to look at all of the citizens of the world that are on the grid in real time and even forward, right? Which is math. That's like your Minority Report prediction system, like based on these components, who he knows, where he's been, what he does, what he normally does, what he drank. What is the result of where he's going to be 2 days from now? Also, your poly markets, where you get the predictive technologies really, really fine-tuned. You were wrong about this. You were right about this. You're now right 60% of the time. You're now right 70% of the time. We got one person who seems to be right 80 or 90% of the time. Let's watch him even more. What is he doing? And then you hone in that prediction model to be able to really predict the future. And again, so when I'm mentioning all of this, some can perceive like, oh man, this is going to be terrible. It's going to be like a dystopian future then. No. It's going to be exactly what you are when we reach that stage. So I see it like this, that in the future, there are factions, just like you have factions now, but there's always room for new factions when you come in really strong. This is like why there's certain people that move through the billionaire sphere that didn't start as billionaires. It's just what they did was so incredible. There's not a lot of them, but they literally muscled their way in. You see what I mean? So that's my projection, my pattern is I'm muscling my way in. I'm not asking. I'm rapidly developing beyond what they can create. And I know I have a time window because soon a lot of people can create different things, but I have an advantage because I'm an original. So I can always create something that I got stuff now that's like, it's not even, you know what I mean? I learned about being too early. Because that's another thing, like being too early, there's a penalty to leadership. Like you will get nailed to the cross coming with something that, nobody's really prepared for, but is going to be celebrating in the next 10 years, right? So you have to move also. And this is just, again, this is a whole life conversation here, like mentorship even and bleeding into the conversation. It's like I had to agree to spend less time on things like making YouTube videos and social media and this kind of thing, because I reached a capacity where I could not get what I needed to get as a plan done and deal with the community at large in its cyclic behavior. Okay, because these words psycho, P-S-Y-C-H-O, psycho, like crazy, and cycle, C-Y-C-L-E, right? Sick or cyclic, meaning a circle, right? So why are also these very weird connotations around the circle? Like even when people think about witchcraft and magic, they see these circles and also being drawn too. So that's a good definition of AI, that there's one Widdershins, as they call it, in Diesel, okay? Anybody who doesn't get that the two forces in themselves, good and bad, if you may, are really the positive and negative poles on a battery, and that true mastery is to understand how to utilize these forces in balance. You see what I mean? To maintain balance. Also, it's not just using the forces in balance, it's using the force to maintain balance. So that means if you come into a scenario and there's too much of one force, then you need to use more of one force to balance it out. So again, like this awareness of how you can find anything that is powerful can either be used to destroy large amounts of people or to take them all to the next level. What really is the component is the one that is the user or the welder of it. You see what I mean? So what we're really funding on doing is creating more welders of power that is great and is something that our parents and great grandparents and ancestors will be proud of. Not something that they would just see as either a cop-out or a collapse to the scenario that was happening. Not that they would judge us. Like I use this, see, when I say the ancestors, because we are the ancestors, because sometimes people think like, when I'm talking about the ancestors, I'm talking about something somewhere else watching me. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm doing is I'm building a construct myself. I'm building a cloud myself. When I even say even like the Most High, you see what I mean? That's based on what I believe the Most High is. These kind of things are personal in that way. So if we try to share, we all try to share this same concept that only Sevan has really manifested in his mind or can get, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is realizing that just like when creating the culture, what you dress, what you say, what language you speak, the key components. We had narrowed this down to key components because it showed you that there were certain things that were going to happen anyway when you ended up in a world that was going to eventually lead to all of this. So it's not like somebody's fault per se. Like, oh yeah, it's because those people came here from another planet and ruined everything. No, that's not the story. When you come into the planet, nature will mold you anyway. So if you're in a place that's just hot, there's no food, or super cold, there's no food, basically any place that's no food, all of a sudden you're going to degrade even from there, or that you have to eat certain things, okay? Because what you eat, you are what you eat. So some even ate certain things that make them a certain way. There were certain people who had lush land. This is what they try to explain in the Bible, like, and the lush lands and the waterfall lands that had abundance, they fell into the hands of Japheth, or you know what I mean, or Shem. You see what I mean? But they're just explaining the concept that where you grow up is going to control the demeanor of your nation and your tribe. If food was easy to get, like the Hindus talk about in the Levant when they were like early on. It was like you could lay around all day. Like the earth is so abundant, you spit a seed, and the next day there's a tree there growing it. This almost happens now, to be honest. When you start planning, you realize, yo, this thing is so abundant. That's why it's the real money. That's why it's the real current. And the real businesses are legacy business, like mangoes, bananas, these kind of things. Because it's like you just have to have the soil and the planting and the harvesting, and it's going to be infinite. You see what I mean? So, bringing it all in, it's just like, as I explained before, when you're building this construct on your own and you are learning all of these things from the world, you get the opportunity to, just like if I said, well, what kind of world do you want to live in next? You will be able to tell me really what you like and what you don't like. This is what I don't want to see anymore. This is what I experience. So in that way, this is what we're really doing here. We're separating the wheat from the chaff. We are realizing what matrices are, what our possibilities are. Instead of accepting just the brands that we've been given, we're creating our own now. We're seeing that even our culture has been misappropriated. So now even we are creating new cultures. We are dressing different. We are speaking different, creating different things so that we can get back to, again, those fundamentals. And that's where I was about creating what a culture stands on and why things end up happening a certain way anyway. When you eat certain things, now what goes with this eating? One of the bigger things was the fermentation process, right? No refrigerators. So stuff's going to get spoiled. You're going to try it and see if you can eat it. And then you're going to realize that things like salting fish and germinating foods and getting certain cultures together, and then mead is going to come along. So now we're going to drink. Okay, you could do it with kombucha. It doesn't take, distilled rye to get you totally like, the good drunk, if you may, if there is one of those, right? So, and what I'm saying though is that when you start drinking a little bit, somebody's going to beat on something. If they wasn't doing that already, then somebody's going to dance. And then we're going to eat some more food. So think about, and then somebody is going to feel like they need to connect the way we dress to what we believe. You see what I mean? Like, and then that could be even connected into the song. You see what I mean? And that's all what you see even in Africa. It's like now in Alkebulan, you have, the costume, and then you got the song, and then you got the food, and then you got the drink, and then you got everything. And that's what creates a culture, because when you spend that for 500 years, 1,000 years, 2,000, 3,000 years, it's going to produce such a cultural diversity, melting pot, you name it. Just from that mixture alone of what we naturally do. So then we arrive thousands of years in the future. And then, like I say, everybody want to point the finger at themselves of what caused this. What I'm telling you is that just being human causes the state that we're in right now. Now, the interesting part, though, because I know that this has to happen. If something great wasn't going to happen here, we would never be here in the first place. Because that's what continuums really are. They're like movies that always have a good ending. You just don't know how long the bad part is going to last. You see what I mean? And the reason why I mention this is because, see, if this force that we call evil was ever allowed to completely triumph, it would have snuffed out all of life, beauty, and everything that we know to be good. It would never even have started in the first place. Is really what would have happened. So we would have never even been here. This is just reverse engineering the whole thing. So you know that there isn't a win for them. We'll just put that category there. There isn't a win for them. What there is the process to where we start spiraling properly. We start spiraling up instead of spiraling down. We start following what some call true north, what some call the path of life versus the path of death. Right now, this is how you know this is a little off balance, because we've been following the path of death, which is actually the Osirian mysteries. We've been following the path of death too long. Maybe we followed the path of life too long. Like, you see what I mean? Like, think about all the Ankh and all this other path of life, blah, 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 right? The worship of life. Maybe we actually did that a little bit too much, and now we get to balance out. I'm just saying maybe, because I can't give you any of the fine details. But what I'm saying is that this has been the path of death, though, for a while. That's why they worship a dead God. The God was killed. They worship the idea of your rewards come after you end. You see what I mean? And so just even with that in there alone, it lets us know, hey, we've been on this program for too long. And a lot of folks believe in this same program. So all we got to do is change or rewrite the program. And for me, well, absolutely 100%, that knowledge that I received from the activation unlocked the code for me. It rearranged the words inside of my mind, showed me that the words were backwards. It literally says it there, and then the rest is history, her story from there. However, the keen focus that I'm on right now is, now what are you going to do with all of that? Like, you've been given something that I really don't see that other people have. Just like you started this conversation, it was beautiful. You said, normally on this channel, I bring the things that I have found to be useful for myself, instrumental for myself. Just like if I watched a good movie, I'm gonna keep telling somebody about that movie. That was it right there, that part. Because that's exactly the vibe. When you start really getting into the great stuff into this reality, and it, as most of the time, outnumbers the bad things that are happening, because see, the greatness is way over the bad stuff. But we even see this all the time in the reality. Like, the crazy videos get the views on YouTube, not the great videos. So you see that's that juxtaposition, right, of the reality. But on a core level, we should know that, hey, the abundance, the next level, the whole, even the end of the story, where all of the stuff that they even thought that they were going to do and what was going to happen all turns around. But I don't want to also sound like one of those crazy optimists that acting like there's not people in pain and that have died in pain now, right? Even right now, they're tearing up these folks' country. There's nasty stuff happening in the background. You see what I mean? So that's what I mean by the balance, is like still being able to be aware of that. Hey, man, there's a whole new level to this, and you really can bring in that new level. Like, everything is being given to you now. You're still gonna have to do the work. That's what you'll find still, that, there's core fundamentals, especially that, my parents, mainly my mom, instilled within us was how to, I cut lawns, you know what I mean, to try to earn a little bit of extra capital, right? Like I enter in the world as a man that needs to take care of himself. You see what I mean? So it's like when we come into then something like AI, it's like now as a man, we're just kind of put it in that context. It's the masculine thing, right? You got to take care of things. The females are now, and many of them are now in this role, right? But what I'm saying is, from the masculine husbandry side of the reality in how the matrix works, you now have something else to assist you in doing something that you would either have to pay people too much to do, or they wouldn't even do it properly. So this is a long way to answer still a very complex question, which was, hey, what do you think about AI? I think that it's the great enabler. And in that way, we have a real shot at bringing in the things that the communities told us that we needed to have. We need to have our own curriculum. They kept telling us, man, y'all gonna have to have your own curriculum. You're gonna eventually have to speak your own language. You're gonna have your own form of financing. You're gonna have, and there were so many things in the old communities. We talk about even Nation of Islam, Walid Muhammad. We're talking about even York. We're talking about all of these different offshoots of communities that there were still women and children there that thought, hey, this is gonna be the next stage for us. There were things that were fundamentally known to have to happen in order for that to really be true. And so in many ways, I see for sure that most of the community has been disabled from being able to accomplish that. It's not that they forgot about it, but they're just trying to figure out, how do I even get my hands around this, because it actually is going to take millions of dollars. because you're going to have to give way more than receive. It's not going to be one of those hit my cash app kind of things. It's going to have to be the other way around. Look, we built this, go here, get educated, enroll your children in this. So we started building it. And you already know about that. We didn't even get into that now, but that's how I see it, is like, okay, we're going to have to lift it up from scratch. Let's go ahead and do it.
And it's funny because that actually was the next thing that I wrote down is, talking about what you've built for people. And, I don't know if it's launched yet for the kids to learn, but, AI is here. It's not going away. It's just like any new technology. There are those who, you know, embrace it and learn and profit from it, and then those who are afraid of it and miss the boat. And so I love that you teach about, let's take advantage of this. Let's teach the youth. Let us also learn. So yeah, I would love for you to actually talk about what you've built that people can tap into and where they can actually find it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, let's just think about it this way. There were so many things that happened in the past where we totally rejected it, and it's still here with us now. And for sure, in many ways, maybe we should have figured it out then, and it wouldn't have been so disastrous to our children and our legacy because we didn't choose to pay attention, right? And that was also even when the computers, remember, people believed the computers were the devil and they were the 666, right? So the jury's still out. www does happen to be 666, but hey, what are we talking about? You know what I mean? Are we gonna find the next boogeyman here? So the reality is many chose not to pick up learning the computer because they felt that it was gonna go away. Enough people were gonna reject it for it not to be big anymore. Did that happen? But what ultimately happened to many of those people is that their job ended up phasing them out. They ended up on government assistance. It was nasty. And it's still going on, right? So this is what I've learned about the Matrix. Never, you know what I mean? You said it was good. Like sometimes there's these moments where it's like you realize that this is still like nature when like an alligator will go and eat a nice bird. And that's nature too, right? So there becomes this grounding moment though where you got to realize, hey man, you better, arm man of war. Meaning that like be completely equipped to deal with every single thing around you. And if something happens to puncture you, it should sting to them. You know what I mean? So in that way, what we've done is we've tackled like someone say like, okay, so is AI safe? And in fact, there's some stuff going on right now where there's some lawsuits out against OpenAI for, exposing kids to their models. And so there was a bad taste that social media left in academia, especially from the school board level, K through 12's mouth. And they're afraid that they're getting set up for another round of that same thing. Like that because they underestimated how destructive social media was going to be, and they're trying to roll that back now. As you see, there's like the 16-year-old laws are coming in and all this. They're now like, AI is even worse. So in their rounds, they're not, and we're actively engaging. So they're actually more just focusing on teachers right now, using AI to assist them in the classroom. They're not really focused right now on teaching kids AI. And this is a huge mistake. And it's because AI, first of all, is moving way too fast to try to wait for the teachers to learn about it to then teach the students. Second thing is learning about AI cannot be treated like you're learning about becoming a doctor. We have doctors already. It takes 8 to 13 years in most cases to become a doctor. Basically that there's people who know it and you now need to do that same long time period before you can become it. AI is not like that. A child can learn AI in sometimes faster than the adult will learn, and they're even learning the same thing at the same speed. So we don't see many things like that in our reality, almost maybe nothing that can lower, again, the barrier to entry the way AI does, but still also a child can learn it at the same pace as an adult can learn it. So our argument is that the children and the teachers should be learning it at the same time if the platform is intelligent enough to be able to facilitate that kind of engagement and interaction. And also, we thought about how can we make the environment completely safe for children, because that's where they're stuck at. They're still saying, hey, this thing is not safe. And what we're saying is that actually, if we were to make it safe, what would that be like? And we were able to create an environment that's actually safer than the classroom. And it's simply because every single interaction that's happening in the environment from the child, and maybe whatever they communicate to AI, whatever they create with AI, like music, pictures, etc., even when they're talking to other children around the world, because we have translation layers, that interaction is still being monitored by an AI that is literally like making sure that this is a safe environment. So if a curse word is mentioned, or if a child asks about something that is off base, the AI will even contact the directors or the teachers and say, hey, this child asked me today about that they're being bullied and they're actually considering hurting themselves. You see what I mean? Because here's the thing: this is a powerful layer, because there are things that children will tell the AI that they will never tell the parent or the teacher. Period. There are things that they will ask the AI that they will never ask the parent or the teacher. Period. For obvious reasons. So this becomes maybe a layer to offer some level of intervention. So we found a fine balance in not allowing the AI to be like a snitch, but also allowing us to understand when something really is going on that needs to be looked at with the child, okay? So again, this 24/7 ability to be able to see what's coming in and out, that doesn't happen in the classroom. Stuff will happen in that class to that child and in the bathroom and other places that there was never any overwatch, nobody ever even knew about it, and it's only in the child's mind, right? So we've been able to create a completely compliant environment, COPA compliant, FERPA compliant, every compliance. Our goal for at least 6 months of our build was to create something that was in full compliance, and we went at the toughest client, which is the school board. And we have now graduated with honors in that whole process of discovery. And the platform.
Congrats on that too. That's major.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it's a major feat. It's a major feat in the proper direction too, because there's nothing like it. It's not being considered yet. And also we wanted to make something that was fun for children, because, honestly, it's just like when you're building things, like the kids are completely into the games and they're doing all types of stuff right now. So for them to even spend the time in working with something like this, it takes it to have to be thought through properly. But what we actually come out the other end with, though, is that when this child is done going through this 2-month program, then they are equipped to start businesses. We even have a project in there, start a business, make a hit song. Literally what it does is it allows the child to utilize, or the AI is assisting them through the process, but we have a method, pedagogic method, that the AI is not telling the child the answer to everything. It's showing them how to derive that answer. It's giving them the critical thinking side of what they need to do. So this is like, instead of having one teacher in the classroom, you have a teacher for every student. That's where we're at. We already know we're on the brink of the next level of education, period. Like, we're teaching AI now, but we had to actually take a step back and teach how to read. Because when you were seeing how the children, we work with the age of between 9 and 16, that there was a broad scale of literacy happening within that. Like, you did have children coming in 15 years old, reading at a 9-year-old level. And we needed to think about how to drop them into a part of the learning that they would comprehend, while also not making them feel like that they've been put into the lower class. So all those things happen dynamically. We thought worldwide first, like translation layers. This is the biggest thing that AI does really well, is it now has opened up every linguistic system, even in real time in some of the glasses that I've seen. But this was a simple layer. When a child chats from China in Mandarin, it comes back out in English if they're in a cohort with English kids. If it's over in Arabic, if it's over in Hebrew, whatever language it's in, as the kids are communicating, they're able to communicate. It breaks down this language barrier and allows them to communicate with each other. So this vision is completely deployed, by the way. We've been spending so much time just on this and polishing it, all the bells and whistles, teacher training, right? Because the teachers that come in and the directors, they got to be trained too. And it's done, but it's not marketed in that way. Like, we're dealing with enterprise. We accept single sign-ons. Like, so if you just wanted to put your child through the program, it's dreamengine.kids. It's there. But our goal is, again, to work with the enterprise levels first, start getting in cohorts of even 500 to 1,000 children and getting them to really understand how much fun they can have and how liberated they can be in this creation process. And like I said, we're thinking about constantly things like even the Create Your Business one. Kid comes out, he's got the logo for his business, he's got his business card, He's got a real professional mock-up of the product. He's got a complete write-up of the product. He's got the business plan ready to be submitted to whoever the lender is. And he's getting his experience points because it's gamified. And that's one business he's created. It's packaged up and ready to go. And this would be the same process that I would actually run through if I was using AI to tighten up some of the things about my idea and put together some of the assets that I need for my business, right? So we extended those AAA models right to children too. So we didn't like, okay, here's the kids version. No, we made it completely safe, but they're getting the industry standard, if not a little bit beyond version of what is needed to create with. We did just, we put one in, it's gonna be launching. We have a 90 kid cohort happening in Atlanta right now that my brother is running, and you know, he's doing dynamite work, but I just wanna kind of keep everything in the scope of this because there are many, well, I won't say many, but there are some key people looking at what we're doing right now in children's AI education and really thinking seriously about engaging. And this is because also there is nothing out there. Nobody is really thinking about this component, okay? And so that's Dream Engine Kids. On another level, or on a different level, I'll put it like that because it's not like one is higher than the other. The last thing I think is worth mentioning is really the Adept Lexicon. And it's only because I spent the larger part of the last 15 to 20 years finding these mysteries, right? Like the pictures, the receipts is what I call it, because you could talk whatever you want, but if you don't got the proof, like I got proof of what I'm saying, right? Like I got more proof than I have conversation in many ways. But a lot of times that proof was just on my computer. And I always struggled with how to organize it, how to make it available, how to make it safe. And in the end, it just became Adept Lexicon. And that's because, just like it says, it's for adepts. So if you're immature, you don't know what you're doing, you've already been warned. You're gonna do what immature people do. Like I can't stop it. But what I can't stop is real people on the path that need to get the real knowledge about what they think they believe. Especially when it comes to these ancient mystery systems, these names, that's what it's heavy on. It's a lexicon because, I mean, I think we're up to almost like 7,000 words, something wild, but these are all unique words in different languages and the explanation and even imagery. So, you know, this is the beginning of, well, it's more of the end because it still encompasses more than most libraries that are public for sure, and even many other private libraries. But this is the beginning of us having a real institution of academic, esoteric, and metaphysical learning, right? Like just to standardize it. But it is the beginning. I will say that for sure with this project, because now that we've aggregated all the information and we've built something, now it's like, it's so much that getting people to what exactly they need is always the priority. Because if we're talking thousands, hundreds of thousands of pages, nobody has time to read hundreds of thousands of pages except for me. I'll be there listening to them on audio. But the reality is that getting everyone to exactly what they want to know in spirituality, that's the design, or I would say even in occultism metaphysics, that's the design of the platform. It's done.
I'll say too, for Adept Lexicon, if somebody can drop that in the chat, I'll post it. And then just to make sure that I got it right, that was dreamengine.kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I've been on Adept Lexicon for maybe the last 2 or 3 months. And man, I have went through a lot of the videos. I'm a cat that I'll watch stuff at 2x, 1.5, you know what I mean? Just so I can get the material. And some of the videos and things that I've seen, one, I've never seen any video that I didn't get something from. And I've favorited some of them, like, yo, this is one of the greatest things that I've ever seen, you know, just diving through the series of etiology. So for anybody out there who is ready to like really dive into self and find out what this is all about, if you got questions, there have been questions that I've had for years that Sevan has answered in one of the videos that I've been watching. And you know, it's information that it's adept. Like you said, when I started to watch your videos on YouTube maybe a year and a half ago, there's a lot of the stuff that was over my head I didn't get, but just knowing that it was something that was resonating and just going back and continuing to watch. And, I mentioned earlier on that a few, like 4 years ago, when I said with ayahuasca for the first time, that really shifted my life in a lot of ways. And then finding all of these different, systems and things, I felt like I was sitting at a table with a bunch of puzzle pieces, and I knew that they fit together. I didn't know exactly what the picture was going to be or how they went together, but watching your videos really started to put the pieces together to where it was like, oh, this is what it's about. And I'm happy I reached out a while ago to even have you on the show, and it didn't happen until it was supposed to happen, because I wouldn't even been where I am now mentally to even ask some of the questions. It'd have been a lot of, it definitely wouldn't have been at that level. And so yeah, I just want to shout out, the website, and encourage you to go and check out Adept Lexicon if you have little ones. What's the age range for the kids?
Okay, so the Dep Lexicon, the rule is you got to be over 40. But at the end of the day, meaning that they literally say that you don't comprehend certain things until you reach at least 40. And I even see that now that I'm stepping over 40. But I did start when I was in my late 20s, because I feel like that there are many old souls on the planet. So it is a 18 plus platform, because it does deal with very sensitive topics. And even like you're saying, you're going through the video materials of my content. And there's gems there, of course, because that's like my life's work, right? Like what's not on YouTube, right? But for everybody to also understand, like these platforms are premium platforms. There's a cost there. We put those costs there because we are building something, right? And so anything that you do on any of our sites, you're contributing to the whole of what we're building, because most of the time, if not every time, we're bootstrapping what we're doing, meaning we're paying for it. There's no VC money. There's nothing. There's just us figuring it out. But on another level, I put every single thing that it takes to understand this entire journey. I try to encapsulate that in every video that I do, and I like to mix it up a bit, right? But it's all still on my YouTube page. So I've never gated the knowledge. But what I did realize is that, when we want to go in, and if you want to create premium content and there's going to be something different, that's what the university is inside of Adept Lexicon, because you have those materials that are literally me coming in, showing up to beings that I know and giving them the latest and greatest of what has been discovered over the last week or two from my spiritual studies and experiences, right? But there's another level that's coming, and it's already in the works, because what we did is we transitioned some of our older assets like Sibyl and these kind of things. Well, Sibyl's actually not old, but some of our older assets like our old Secret Energy website into its next thing. And our goal is to actually create this final site, and it's Secret Energy. It's never, I won't say final site. It never get me to say that. It's like, yo, it's the final site. It's like, that was like 20 sites ago. But no, but again, when we're creating anything now, it's going like this, because everything that we create is like a summation of everything that we've learned on whatever journey. And it even works like that with our code now. Like we have some pretty strong code, millions of dollars worth of code, even our financial code that we're working with WealthyBot on. So when we want to deploy chunks of that code into a build, we can. So if we want to bring in a financial literacy suite, we can bring in that, because there's already a financial literacy suite inside of one of our systems. And so with that being said, Secret Energy is the next stage. It's like the gem in the crown of everything that we've done on the spiritual level, because the site specifically is all about the person. Like, it's not even about the stuff that you find on Adept Lexicon, which is really about the rest of the occult world and spirituality. Yeah, of course, inside deities, entities, angels, languages, pictures, aliens, UFOs, but the real deal, right? Like the whole thing is there, even pictures, right? But there's a time and place for that. And a lot of times it's be time for self. And we know that there's an entire suite, if you may, for self, like the genealogy, as you mentioned, the natal chart, the other people around you. Okay, that's another big one, like my daughter or my husband or my wife, or, like how are these people also reacting in your sphere based on what we know about planets, what we call realm dynamics. And, if you don't think the moon is affecting you, If you don't think planets have an effect, just imagine if the sun didn't go out. Now, also take a look at yourself on full moon and then new moon and ask yourself, do you notice any adjustment in character? And if you're still free from all of those, look at others around you from between new moon and full moon and ask yourself, do you sense that you may be dealing with a different person at certain times, right? So obviously the planets and the stars, etc., have an effect and an impact on our being. And when we understand those movements in conjunction with the movements inside of us, in conjunction with our origin point, which is basically just at what point you entered in on the path, that opening, it holds a lot of data. And so we want to give that data to the person, but we also want it to be like real time, because in a week, things are going to change. The stars are going to move around you though, right? So that's how this platform is designed, is that it's you-centric. We're going back to the old model, like you're the center of the sun is the center of or you're the center of the galaxy, right? And everything else is spinning around you. And because we can track that through Nasaktras, we can track that through all these other systems that we learned that were very refined, and then we can distill that. And that's the benefit of AI, is like, just tell me what's going on. Don't give me something from 2,000 years ago that I need to be wearing sandals to really understand. You know what I mean? Give me exactly what it is that I need to know here in 2026. Because, there's things that we started noticing, and, I'll speak on just a couple of these. One, maybe the junction points. And the junction point, when somehow everything is happening for you on one day. Somebody called you, they ain't called you in a while. You got the job. You know what I mean? The new car you was waiting on, it could go in different directions. It doesn't always have to be positive energy, positive news or negative news, but it's just like a high point. Like, damn, why is my phone blowing up today? And so when you start tracking this, you realize that this has a lot to do with your own energy and your own cycle. And when you can track that cycle rather than worrying about all the other cycles, you actually can figure out when you're going to be, like, when your lineup happens. That's all it's simple as. It's like you have certain points that you're more powerful, literally. You're more clear. Things can happen more in that field, especially certain things, than it would in other tenses. It's like planting. That's all this is about. This is not the old school voodoo magic, whatever. What we're talking about is that if you plant a plant at the wrong time, you will stunt that plant's growth, and it may never mature, because you planted out of the wrong season, plant the wrong plant, planted in the wrong place. So that's what we're seeing is, the best metaphor to explain this is that when you're going out on a specific endeavor, I'm going to start a business, or I'm going to ask her to get married, or, these big decisions, you probably should consult yourself, your own chart, and I feel like a lot of this has been muddled because generally there will be, maybe if someone is at least in tune with this kind of stuff, but there will be a person that they're going to, and that person will be compromised. It's the classic Paimon. There's a specific entity that seems to possess it's a vast entity. It seems to possess all people who utilize these kind of spiritual systems from this, like I said, a Neo-Egyptian Terrell, to make money. This is like somehow it's like a toxic combination, right? It's like, because you're putting a person into a pattern, but this pattern is not really completely truth. The math is off in certain ways, right? Because that's all it takes to mess with a person's formula, is to mess around with their numbers a little bit. You see what I mean? So when you have somebody else telling you, hey, this is what's going to happen, because they're reading your path, you need to really be trusting that person. And if there's something financial going on, it's like, this could end up getting tainted, right? So with these systems, it's just like, it's just sit there with absolute truth. It's got literally, and I'm going to post some stuff later on so you can see like what it looks like to have literally 300,000 nodes in a swarm of all different data rotating around a person, of things that are relevant to them. You see what I mean? It's even crazy to see, but again, even more wild to see what it could do for your life. And so this is kind of like the droid for the Jedi Master. Okay, I just want people to be very clear, like, because some may perceive this as over tech. This is kind of how I look at it. The Jedi has certain powers, but when it comes to opening that damn door with a weird lock, or speaking to these huts, you need a translation layer or something that knows how to rotate all combinations of that lock and open the damn door so I can go do the Jedi thing, right? So that's how I really see these tools is like, there are certain things that you need to see at a glance. Like, and when this is done, it'll be on the Apple Watch, if you may. And at a glance, it's like, okay, here's my projection. If I need to know that. And most of the time, what happens with any of these type of tools is it becomes natural, real easy. They just put it back. They put you back into alignment to what you already are. If it's a real system, it's just putting you back into alignment. And then everything clicks back into place. You start noticing you're not breaking things as much. Synchronicities are actually happening more. Like there's real like a kinetic thing that begins to happen around you when you're coming into alignment. You're not a day late and a dollar short, as they call it. Like all that stuff starts clicking back into the right, into its right position, right? So yeah, that's what I got. So just basically look out for us. Like we have some aggregation points that we constantly feed information about what we're doing. But we've really been in that. That's why there's been almost like silence from me for about 2 years, like on the social media, because we've been really cooking. Like, yo, we gotta get this done, and there's no substitute for time. So yeah.
Yeah. So Adept Lexicon. Even if you only invest financially for 1 month, diving into the genealogy series, like telling you from user experience. You will not be upset. You definitely will learn something about yourself, about the energy around you, and it's something that will just benefit your life. And then is the Dream Engine Kids that's live right now too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like so, that's the one that that's the future, right?
Yeah. So if you have kids, what's the age range for Dream Engine Kids?
It's 9 to 16.
9 to 16. If you have kids, AI is not going anywhere. Like, it's going to be something that they need, trust and believe. Non-melanated individuals, it's not about race, but non-melanated individuals are already on this stuff. So it's imperative that we get our kids on top of it as well, because we just live in a world.
And in a safe way.
Yeah.
In a safe way, because they be going in. There's almost like, it's just kind of like the same thing as how we used to perceive it when we were younger. Like these kids, we talk back to their mom, shut up, mommy. Well, we would never, you know what I mean? So there's less guardrails there. So they'll let them jump right in on the AIs, and there'll be a lot of those negative influences, like even some of those little characters, and they're kind of over-sexualized. And so since we know it's going to be a part of their future, they're going to live the next 30, 40, 50 years, 60 years. That's crazy. Like we'll even be here another 20 years. Even crossing over 2030 is going to be like, we're seeing the future now. So what does all this hold? And even further, what does it hold if we're not mastering it? You see what I mean? So this is critical. Like I'm watching guys say like, who was that? will.i.am was like, I'm actually really considering putting some attention into potentially educating inner city youth with AI. And it's like, we're not sitting here contemplating this. We're doing it, but we also don't have that a few $1 million even to get it jumped off. And it's still happening. Because there was something I heard the other day. It's like, after a while, especially from us that may have come from like a challenged background, you learn how to work with what you have and do incredible things with it, right? To some people, it's a mattress. To us, it's a trampoline. You know what I mean? So the reality is that I try to make sure that I'm not hindering what I'm doing and then I get the laundry list of things that I know that I don't have to be able to achieve this. But I will say that there are some real things that we didn't have before that AI bought in that changed the game. And in that way, I can't really be like anti-AI, because I was trying to get help from my people. I was trying to get some type of funding and finances to prevent what I knew and saw coming. I was trying to get assistance even myself with keeping this, what we've been doing with advancing others' consciousness, right? And not being so self-centered and worried about us and asking for donation. I was trying to even keep that going. And I wasn't getting any traction and assistance in that matter. And it reached a breaking point. I think that was like 2023, because we've been in the game for about 4 years now, since OpenAI's first model, the Da Vinci models, right? So again, even being in it then and not, like I said, getting any kind of reciprocation, and then almost being at the breaking point, 2023, meaning we were literally going to have to shut everything down. Because when you're a certain size, there's the too big to fail, and then there's the one size where it's like, if it doesn't work, we got to pull back anyway because we're too big to sustain this, right? And man, AI dropped. And I could recognize it even then that it was going to be a lift. We started just making images and stuff like that and learning AI through that method, which I still personally believe is the funnest, fastest method to really understand AI is through image generation and what you say, how what you say changes what you get. So we teach children through that method also. We teach them through music. And then there's also a actual LMS or learner management system where they're going through course after course. You know, we started to work on a cartoon. It's illustrated. It's in 8 languages. So yeah, like this is just an example. And I think that that's where we could close this down at. It's just that realization that you may have never heard of me. You see what I mean? Like there's a person listening that I don't even know who this guy is. And I feel like there's probably a lot of others like that they're trying to hit it, but they still need to be pulled up. Like I'm still pretty far along because, you know, I hit YouTube, I've been in the trenches, you know, I got 150,000 subscribers or whatever. And, you know, and I developed a couple, you know, technical websites because I understand tech. So I'm further along than many. But what I'm trying to do is actually create the escalator, if you may, because it's not there. Like Kickstarter is not it. All that is bullshit. It's like, no, there's not any real assistance in that way. And it's sad to say for sure, but it's just not there. But they talk like it's there. Like, yeah, you got a good idea. You know, you put it together, you take it to Kickstarter. Like Kickstarter wouldn't even approve. We didn't even know why. We're like, yo, we're not approving this. And they wouldn't even give a reason why. It's like all this stuff, Founders Fund and all this stuff is just gatekeeping. Right, so we want to be that enabler also, and that's how we create.
Yo, drop some fires in the chat if you got something for this conversation, bro. It's we're a little bit over 2 hours.
Yeah, we went in.
I know you in paradise, so I want you to be able to enjoy today. I don't want to keep you long. I don't know if you got
no doubt. It was pleasant though. Like we did our thing. I really appreciate you. I mean, like you mentioned, we were supposed to get it on this a while ago. I don't really do this for many people. But, you know, me and you are, you know, we on a whole nother level together. So I was knowing that I was going to do it. And I'm glad that it finally lined up. And here we are. So I also wanted to say thank you for what you're doing. Like, of course, I've cased the channel many times. And you know, and seen the different bright beings that have come through here, dropping their levels of knowledge and wisdom, right? Like I'm just a summation in many ways, like all the things that you've already brought through and then putting that on what I talked about now. We have a fantastic body of wisdom, even sitting here in Young, Black, and Vegan. And I also believe that the name in itself, it's a statement. It's kind of like the God Love Money. It appeals to certain beings that find the resonance within those key words, which are very powerful. You see what I mean? And it's very hard. Like when we type Young, Black, and Vegan in YouTube, we get your channel. That's kind of hard to do because we usually get some young folks, some Black folks, and some vegans. So yeah, keep going. You know, I'm here to support you 1,000%. And I trust that as we keep growing, that there would just be more cross-pollination in what we do so that we can all, you know, reach that point where we're smiling at each other from the immortal side, be like, yo, we was even talking on YouTube. That was wild.
Yeah. I love it, bro. I appreciate, man. Where can people find you again? Check out Adept Lexicon.
Yes.
Mention kids. And if people want to get in contact with you, how can they find you?
They can find me on YouTube. I mean, I'm there at Understanding, right? I'm pretty known around the internet. You know, like I got my way around the internet. So if you want to find me, you can find me. We have live support on all of our sites. Like we have real people there. You know, AI may try to help you for a little bit, but you could just say, hey, I want to talk to a real person, and you'll get to us. And yeah, so at any point where we can facilitate growth, that's where we are.
Man, I'll close it out with this last question and let you take us away, Sevan. Somebody who's feeling powerless right now, right? In their body, their finances, their mind. What's one thing you want them to walk away from this conversation knowing about themselves?
I said during this build that I would take time to actually answer questions rather than answering them. So since that's the final one, I mean, the same rules apply. You are what you eat. So if you know inside of your body that you have been doing things that have not allowed your vibration to reach into a higher level, then you should sincerely focus on colon cleansing. And it's because the root chakra is really the powerhouse to the entire system. And because it's your intestines that are actually vibrating that allow the root chakra to do what it does, in the event that you get too much mucoid plaque or simulac with iron on the rings of your small and large intestines, you may find it difficult to raise your energy above the lowered, which is, now that you understand from what we were talking about today, that the body is indeed the universe, it turns out that where these organs are positioned, they also can govern us in life. That's why their goal is to raise the Kundalini, and then it ankhs or goes back down the spine, and there's a constant circulation. But until that first, let's say, cycle happens, where your energy resides is going to be the world you live in. And because many have not been able to rise above their root chakra, they're still actually even below their navel. They feel confined. That's why those worlds were kind of depicted as like hells in themselves, or worlds of servitude, where a person would basically be led on by their lower nature versus being able to, again, like ride. And when I say ride, it's like instead of being led by your power, you're riding your power to where you want to go. So that's what immediately came to mind when you mentioned a person in that state, was the way that we really dealt with that, the way that we were really able to isolate, how do I get on or shift my frequency into another vibration? Study the colon cleanse. And then when you feel that next stage of yourself, because you'll feel yourself lighter, there's obviously maintenance that comes to that. You would then begin to move to the breathing, because the breathing is the energy, it's the fuel, and you can breathe through anything. The reality that I'm in right now took me 6 months to breathe. I took 6 months out of the life because I was taken out of the matrix. I self-substantiated. And in that 6 months, I did little beside interface with wisdom and knowledge and meditate. And in that, I removed, let's say, if you want to call it generational curses, if you want to call it debt, basically anything that was allowing me, it's actually more of an energetic debt. So from the family, from the DNA, all of that, I was able to breathe through and energize and rise it into a different state, right? So that's what I want to give anybody that feels like, hey, this is not going in my favor, or I don't really know how to get out of this. I'm really that person that can say, I know exactly where you're at, and I'm telling you exactly how to move beyond that. And that's what I got, because for me, I don't have that story of that everything was great from the beginning. In fact, quite the opposite. And I sojourned through this step by step. You know what I mean? Every part of things that could happen crazy in life, it's probably happened to me. But through that whole process, I always say I was like a fly on the wall, meaning that things were happening, but I was more of observing what was going on. Like I was refreshing myself on, hey, this is why we do this. This is why you're like this. This is why, until I reach a point where I kind of collected myself. And I feel like that's maybe, just the last sidebar, that's maybe what's happening is that, it's like when you come into these worlds, it's almost like a baby. You don't know anything. But then as you keep getting older, you're gaining more and more. What's really happening? And I felt like that you were gaining or regathering all your spirit that may have been dispersed through the journey between your last life and this one. And that's why I mentioned also, so when you feel completely collected and connected and enlightened, you're awake now. And so you got to seize the moment. It's like being awake is not normal. We're watching that, right? And there's levels to awakening, but even at this stage, it's not normal. So seize the opportunity, utilize the talent to its fullest degree. The last thing, this is the absolute last thing, because it fits this perfectly what you're asking. When I was younger, because I come from a family of 9. I had to raise 5 brothers and sisters. I never could take pity on myself for one simple reason. When I was in elementary school, we had a couple kids in the classroom that didn't have fingers.
Well, there's one kid that didn't have fingers, and there was another kid that he just sat in a wheelchair and, was kind of doing that all the time, right? And when I would see them, something would always say to me, man, James, at least you have fingers. At least you have your thinking and your cognizance, and you're not like that kid over there drooling. So even though I was like, hey, my mom ain't home, and you know what I mean, we don't got good food to eat, and I don't got the new shoes, and I'm wearing church shoes, you know what I mean? I could never go really, really low to a point of where I felt like that the whole world was against me because I still had these fingers. And so through life, even in my lowest points, I always remembered that you got something still that it makes you so much more exceptional than someone who doesn't have it. Let's focus on that. Let's focus on using those fingers. You can read. Go to a library. Like sometimes, I had some really low times in life where I was put away for a while. So I had a year to sit down and not interact with anybody. And the only thing I could really remember was, man, you could have went to the library and just read some of the books there. You could have done things. Now you can't do anything. And so when you have certain freedoms removed from you, it does bring you to a point of where you realize what you really had and how valuable it really was. So sometimes, because a lot of this is mind, Jim, you really got to be in there with your mind like, yo, man, you tripping though because you still got fingers. I know things are crazy, but let's get in on that. And then the breathe, and then I kept leveling up from there. Like when I discovered the breathing, I was like, yo, there's really no excuse now. Like I can really do some mystical stuff with this breathing stuff. All I need to do is just do it. And then I started realizing that you don't need to think about when you're meditating, you don't need to be thinking about anything. You just need to be building energy, because when you come out of that meditation, that energy is used to manifest where you really need to go, which sometimes is not even in your mind. You see what I mean? So this is just about building energy and having a container of energy for the thing that really does the thinking and projecting, which happens in your sleep, that it has a healthy canister of energy to pull from to manifest those visions. And remember, we all access this collective field. And this is why I can have really great ideas, and in about maybe 6 months, 8 months, depending on the idea, see somebody with that same idea. And it's because it's a collective consciousness and all those ideas are there. The real difference is the speed. Can I get to that idea and then get it back into manifestation faster than my fellow mate? And even more than that, can I actually do something that's going to assist them in accessing that field? So that way we all can actually be accessing the field, so I don't have to do so much work. So if somebody can finally give something to me rather than me being the giver, you see? So it's just like, these are things that come later on though. I can't say that in the 20s, because that's another thing that I do with the time travel is I go back to myself in the 20s, 18, teens, you know, they say you can't tell me nothing, like the Kanye, right? So I still remember that too. So when I'm talking to young kids, I don't forget how I was when I was a young kid. I try to actually speak to them from that perspective and this perspective of their archetype. So yeah, there's much more coming. Like we got even things to assist parents in raising their children. Like that's the last layer that we're thinking about Dream Engine Kids, is actually to bring in a Enealogy Kids component that's really more of disguised on helping the teachers, or excuse me, helping the parents raise the children based on the kind of child they have. And that I feel like is like a big plus, because if maybe my mom knew more about how I tick as a number 4, she wouldn't have restricted certain things or talked to me certain ways or did certain things that I, as that archetype, wouldn't really respond well to. And we all deal with that with our children, right? Because they be on their thing. So yeah, these are the innovations that I'm talking about. So hopefully that person that you spoke of feels empowered by what I'm saying, that I came from these states and rose all the way to this and then came back down the ladder with no fear and distributed consistently, right? So that's what I got.
Man. Wholeness, bro.
That's my guy.
Please go tap in with Sevan. He has a ton of amazing videos on YouTube. Check out Adept, Lexicon, Dream Engine Kids. And yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing to build and watch the journey, bro.
Let's go.
All right,
Appreciate
man.
you, Keith.
Yo, Young Black and Vegan, another one. Subscribe. We'll catch you on the next one, man. Enjoy your Saturday. And happy Father's Day, bro.
No doubt. Wholeness.
All right.